Hi, I'm Nicole at the Vigo County Public Library, and welcome to Painting with Nicole. Today we're going to be painting my friend 𝕤𝕤𝕣𝕣𝕣 the owl. 𝕤𝕤𝕣𝕣's a fun little guy. He has some spiky hair, he has a lot of color, and it's going to be a great time painting him. What we want to remember, as always, is that this is your art and your interpretation of 𝕤𝕤𝕣𝕣, so your art isn't going to look exactly like my art, and by the time we're done, my new art isn't going to look exactly like my old art. So all that matters is that we have fun and we express ourselves. So let's talk about our supplies. The things you're going to need today are a canvas, a paper plate to use as a palette for your paints, a few napkins or paper towels, brushes in a couple of different sizes, a cup of water, and then various paint colors. Here are just a few of the colors that I'm going to use today. Let's get started on our background. I'm using yellow, a tiny bit of orange, and some white. So we're going to cover the whole canvas. I'm going to use just a little bit of yellow and white at first. And then just start brushing it on. Any way you want. You can have uniform strokes. You can have strokes that go all over the place, like I'm doing. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of orange in there. Give it a little bit of variation in depth. More white. And we want to make sure we cover the whole canvas. We don't want any blank spots or little white dots shining through. Just keep covering it. Orange up there. And then as we're painting, we want to remember that we're going to paint the sides also. Don't want to leave those blank. That's going to give you a nice finished edge so that when you're done, if you want to hang your masterpiece on the wall, you don't have to worry about framing. It'll look like it's a complete piece of art. Too, don't forget about it. And if you have any globby spots where you've got a lot of paint, you just want to take your brush and just pull them straight through and spread it around on your canvas because we don't want any thick spots. It'll take a little bit longer to dry if we have that. And the canvas has to be dry before we start on our next phase. Moving your brush around until you're happy with the way your background looks. That looks good to me. So I'm going to put my brush down after I rinse it. We're going to take a break. We're going to let this paint dry, make sure it's completely dry, and then when we come back, we're going to sketch in the shape of 𝕤𝕤𝕣𝕣𝕣. Okay, I hope you had a great time on your break. Our paint should be dry now, so what we're going to do is we're going to take white paint and we're going to paint in the shape of 𝕤𝕤𝕣𝕣𝕣. So a little bit of white paint. Okay, figure out exactly where you want to place him. somewhere kind of in the middle here, and we're going to start out by painting a big circle. This is going to be one of his eyes. You want to make it a little bigger or a little smaller, feel free. And we do want the two big circles to be touching. And you can always change your shape up a little bit once we add color. You can make it a little bigger. Okay. I'm pretty happy with the shape of his eyes there. So now we're going to do his body. So we want to take our paintbrush, just come down to a curved line, curve it around, and we're going to do the same thing over here. Okay, we want to fill it in. Just keep filling it in. We want to give it a pretty good coat of white paint. The white paint is going to make our colors, when we go over it, they're going to stand out a little more and be just a little more vibrant. Just keep adding paint if you don't like the shape or you want them to be a little bigger. Just going to add some there. Mine's not perfectly centered, but that's okay. Okay, now we're going to do a wing. So for the wing, to come just down a little bit from his eye, and kind of curve out, and then pull it down, and swoop up a little bit to a point. And here, pick it up here, curve around, and then just, there we go. Now he has a wing shape. Fill that in. Okay. Over here, we're going to do the same thing. My wings aren't exactly the same. That's okay. And once we're done with our two wings, add a little bit more paint here first though. I'll add a little bit more just to make sure that we get a good base before we put the color on. And once we're done with that, we're going to add his spiky hair. And if you don't want to add his spiky hair, that is perfectly fine. But if you do this, we're just going to take a little bit of white paint on our brush. We're going to go right between his eyes and just pull up. Just make a bunch of little spikes. Because again, that's going to give us a good base to add color. So really it's just kind of the shape. You don't have to. Pretty happy with that. Just keep filling in the white until you're happy with the base you have. Okay. I'm happy with the way he looks so far. So now it's time for another break. We're gonna step away, let this white paint dry completely, and then we're gonna come back and start adding his character. Don't forget to rinse your brush. All right, let's get started on adding his color. So I've added some colors to my palette. I've added a couple of different blue colors and a turquoise color. And I'm gonna take the turquoise color first. You can really use any of the colors that you like. It's entirely up to you. And I'm just going to kind of go around his eyes and just make circles. Kind of pull that paint. Do this one the same way. It's a little crazy right now, but that's okay. And if you didn't make your eyes as big as you want, now's the time you can take this paint and just kind of pull it into the yellow a little bit and make it a little bigger. We're going to leave that center just a little bit of white. And then I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to dip it just a little bit into the darker blue color. And then I'm going to pull some of that through just here and there on both eyes. Pull it around. Back and forth, kind of blend it a little bit. There we go. Take some of my light blue, and I'm going to come down here to the wings, and I'm going to start coloring in the wings. There we go. Just fill the wings in. You can also go back and take some of the turquoise or any of your other colors and just put a little bit of that in there too. Just adds a little something extra to it. Okay, let's go over here and do the same to our other wing. Off a little bit. And I'm going to come back with just a tiny bit of the turquoise over here. Okay. And then I'm going to take some of my darker blue and I'm going to paint the main part of this body. add other colors to this and blend some of your other blues in, you can do that. I'm gonna go ahead and fill them in a little dark and then go back with some of my other colors to add in some highlights and darker blue up here in his eyes. We can do that too. Pull it around, just in circles like we had been. The other colors. A little bit of darker blue through the wing. Just a tiny bit on your brush. Just kind of pull it around in there. Their feathers. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just whatever you like, what your preference is. I'm going to rinse my brush again, and then I've also added a little bit of purple and green to my palette. So I'm going to pick up some of this purple, and I'm just going to brush it in just on the edge of his feathers. There. You can be as neat or as messy as you like. My lines are never overly neat. I'm always a little bit messy, and that's okay. I like it that way. Too, because remember his feathers are all mixed. Okay. And I'm going to take a little bit of that purple and just put in some streaks up here too. I'll wipe my brush off, and then I'm going to go into my green paint, and I'm going to do the same type thing with my green. Just add a little bit of that. Brush because I got a little mixed with my purple and wasn't the prettiest color combination. So back into the green, just a little bit. There we go. A little bit of green down here. Feather your brush strokes, whatever you want to do. Brush off, and then I'm going to go back into my turquoise, and we're just going to put some of the turquoise up here too. Pull it through. Okay, let's try some of the darker blue. No right or wrong way to do it. Some of the colors are mixing, and that's good. It gives you a whole different color. Light blue. for his crazy hair there. Go in and just do a tiny bit of green. If some of your white shows through, that's okay too. Okay. Step back, take a look, see what you think. If you want to add more colors, you want to change anything, go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and take some white and just paint the center. Just go over it a little bit, and we're going to paint his eye now. It's actually going to be part of his eye. So just do a couple of circles there in the center. We might let that dry and then come back over it one more time, just so it's a little thicker. Okay. If you want to add any white down here to the wings, go ahead and do so, just like this. Just same way you did the other colors. Nice little highlight. You don't like and you want to change it, just go for it. No right or wrong way to do this. Just a tiny bit more white. Mine's dry enough that I can add some more. Yeah. We want his eyes to have a nice white center. Okay. All right. I'm going to put my brush down for a little bit. I'm going to step away. I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to finish his eyes, add a beak, and go from there. Okay, now what we're going to do first off is we're going to go back into our white paint, and we are going to make a small triangle right here at the base of where his eyes are, and we're just going to do that, and then just a little bit of a curve on top, and then just come down, and this is going to be his beak. But we want to go ahead and do that with just a little bit of white paint, so that way our orange paint will show up a lot brighter. Just like everything else. You can make that beak however big you want. Okay? So just like that, and that's done until we go over it with the orange once it dries here in a minute. In the meantime, I've added a little bit of black paint to my palette, and with the black paint, we're just going to go in with the same way we did with some of the other colors, just a little bit, and just add some highlights, some definition here and there. So, just a few lines. Or if you want to skip the black paint, you can do that also, but I like just to add a little bit of black paint sometimes. Lines here and there. If you want to add some up here in his fringy hair, you can do that too. Okay? And then once you're sure that your whites of your eyes are dry, we're going to go back into the black paint, and we're just going to paint a black circle right in the middle there. And my brush just messed me up a little bit, but remember, there are no mistakes. We can fix everything. Just add a little paint or wait for it to dry and paint over it. And we might have to go over this a couple of times with our black paint to make it dark enough. But that one I'm not sure is completely dry. It's a little bit gray now, so just add a little more black. Yeah. I don't think that eye was all the way dry. So I'm going to stop with that one. Back to this one, it was a little drier. Rinse my brush off. Okay. You want to take a look at your painting, see if you want to add any black anywhere else, if you want to add any more of these other highlight colors. Now's the time to do that. Looks like my white paint is pretty much dry there for his beak, so I'm going to go back into my orange and I'm just going to paint over the top of that. We're going to add his little beak in there. And once we're done with that, we're going to come down here and we're going to add his feet. So, just going to do that. Just take my brush sideways and just kind of tap it. There we go. Okay. I'm going to rinse my brush. And then we're going to take a couple minutes and we're going to let this finish drying, and then we're going to come back and we're going to add our tree branch and then a couple of black highlights to his beak and his feet, and we're almost done. Okay, let's finish off his eyes. So now we're going to take the end of our brush or some other small rounded object and we're going to dip it in our white paint, get some of that white paint on there, and then we're just going to go boop, boop, just like that. Don't forget to make the noise, it makes it a lot easier. Boop, boop. There we go. Now we're finished with his eyes. Okay, once we're done with that, we're going to come back into our black paint and we're going to paint the tree limb he's standing on. Now if you don't want to paint the tree limb, stop there, no problem. But if you do, a little bit of black paint on your smaller brush. We're just going to start here at the edge, just come across there. Don't forget, tree limbs aren't always completely straight, so we'll just dip down a little bit, come back up, just to where his little claws are touching our tree limb. My tree limb's going to come down there. A little bit more paint. Ran out. Okay, it's going to taper here at the end. Okay, and then I'm going to just pull a little branch like that off of my main tree limb. If you want to do that in a couple other places, that's okay. Just like that. And just paint want your tree limb however you want it to look. Make sure it goes up and touches where his claws are. Okay. There we go. Back here, it's not quite as dark as I want it. Okay. Once you're happy with that, just wipe off some of the black paint off your brush. You just want a tiny bit just on the very end, and then we're gonna come back to his claws, and I'm just gonna put a few little black lines there. There we go, just like that. Then we'll go back up to his beak. I'm just gonna highlight it some with the black. Okay. Rinse my brush. I think I might just add a tiny bit of white here too. Just a little. Okay. There we go. All right. Now, if you want to, I'm going to add some little green leaves to the ends of my branch here. So I'm just going to dip the very tip of my paintbrush, and I'm just going to touch it just like that. I'm just going to make some little green leaves just here and there on the branches. You can have as many or as few as you like on this. Doesn't really matter, it's just all what you prefer. So if you don't want to do any at all, that's okay. Or if you want to add a bunch of other colors, like your branches have flowers, you could do that. That would be really pretty. I'm just going to stick with some basic green leaves. Little dots. Just like that. Come back to this one. There we go. A little more green paint. That when my tree limb comes over to the edge, I'm going to wrap it around where it goes right out there, and we'll paint a little black tree limb right there on the edge of this. Okay? All right. If you're happy with where your artwork is at right now, you can stop, you can sign your name, you can use a Sharpie, you can also use your paintbrush and just put your initials or write your name with your paintbrush. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to put my initials. Very important to make sure you put your initials because you want everyone to know that this is your masterpiece. So, my initials right here. Okay. You can do your initials really simply. You can get a little fancy. I like to do mine with a little few dots. Makes it stand out. It's a little more fun. And I'm done. Here's Norbert. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. I know I had a lot of fun painting with you. When you're all done, have your adult take a picture of your artwork and post it to our Facebook page. We would love to see what you've created. Don't forget, take care of your brushes, rinse them out, put them away. You can always use them again. Look forward to seeing you.